Well, hello again, everybody. It is John from WrestleScope TV. Hope everybody has been doing well. Wanted to return with some new content here finally. I know it's been a while. Thankful for everybody that has been continuing to follow along on all of our social media. I know things have been very quiet, but happy to be back and going to be putting a little bit of a different focus on things here over the coming weeks. Going to try out a few things. As always, please remember to like the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you can be updated every time there is new content on the channel. Greatly appreciate any time that you were able to do any of that. And also, I'm going to put this up here. Don't forget to follow us on all of our social media, on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, everywhere that we are. It is all available for you wherever you may be. So today I want to talk about one specific thing, and you saw it in the title of this, and that's not it. If you're not watching Impact Wrestling, you're missing out. Now, when it comes to mainstream professional wrestling here in the United States, obviously you've got the main talking focuses of the two big dogs in the room. Sorry, Roman Reigns. You've got WWE and AEW. And with WWE, that does include NXT as well. With AEW, that includes Ring of Honor. You know, you watch the great majority of wrestling talkers here on YouTube, on social media, podcasts, etc. You'd have to say probably 90 to 95% of the discussion, if not more, is on WWE and AEW and any brands or programs that are affiliated or work in conjunction with them. The reason I say that is with the upcoming Forbidden Door 2 in just a couple of weeks at the time of this recording. So anybody that's working in conjunction with them, you've got New Japan, you've got Ring of Honor, you've got NXT. All of these can be attached to this as far as WWE and AEW, simply from the partnership and the ownership standpoint of things. Now, there is one company, though, that has been in existence for over 20 years now, that tends to fly under the radar. They get overshadowed by most casual wrestling fans. And honestly, there's three tiers of wrestling fans. You've got the diehards that watch anything and everything that they possibly can, which, I fall into that category. And then also, you've got the people from Fightful and Cultaholic and Wrestle Talk and, people like Denise Salcedo and Sean Ross Sapp and Steven Larson and, obviously Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez. It just all those different types of people that, talk about it, report on it, and so many others out there as well. Then you've got the staunch fans, the people that will watch WWE and or AEW on a regular basis, and other programs, Ring of Honor, NWA, whatever else may be out there. People that are really into the international wrestling as well, or the independent wrestling. Then you have the casual fans, the ones that it's not so much destination watching for them. They'll try to stay up to date on what's going on Monday nights, on Wednesday nights, on Friday nights, catch the pay-per-views when they can, the PLEs, all those types of things. You've got the three tiers there. So, but this organization that I'm talking about tonight, and it's Impact Wrestling, it's one of the ones that really does get overshadowed, in my opinion, by casual wrestling fans. But they consistently put on good shows. They have solid pay-per-view events, and they have really good, if not incredible, storylines and talent. And that is Impact Wrestling, like I said. And they consistently hang on to that number 3 spot here in American-based professional wrestling. And I know there's going to be some Ring of Honor fans that get upset with me. Now, had we taken a step back, back to 2017, 2018, 2019, even after the beginning of AEW, you could say Ring of Honor was kind of there, but then they went dormant, and then Tony Khan bought them. But I still believe, that Impact Wrestling was still at that that higher level, that number 3 level, for many, many years. And it's been an organization that has obviously gone through a number of different changes, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But when it comes down to it, taking a look at this, Impact Wrestling, they've got it all. They've got something for every fan out there. If you love technically sound wrestlers, guys that, are good when it comes to, catch as catch can wrestling, mat wrestling, can still do power moves and some other things, and just always can consistently put on a great match with whoever is in there. They have the likes of Josh Alexander, who is unfortunately on the sideline right now, Nick Aldis, Jonathan Gresham, Frankie Kazarian. Incredible high flyers, smaller guys that could do amazing things out there. The current Impact Wrestling X Division champion, Trey Miguel, Rich Swann, Speedball Mike Bailey, who just had a chance. He was just in Japan for one of their big tournaments. Got a chance to showcase himself there. Now, are you one of those people that absolutely loves the brawling style? More of the hardcore, just smash mouth kind of wrestling. The former Impact Wrestling champion, Steve Macklin, Bully Ray, the legend Bully Ray, Sami Callihan, Moose, Eddie Edwards, those guys all fit that bill. You continue on and you look here at others, the women's division. Now, the women's division in wrestling is heavily talked about, whether it's AEW, WWE. I want to talk about Impact Wrestling. They could definitely rival the big two, if not overshadow them. They have Deonna Purrazzo, the current Knockouts champion, Jordan Grace, the 2-time champion, the newest addition to their roster, Trinity Fatu, the former Naomi from WWE, Mickie James, Killer Kelly, Masa Slamovich, the teams of the Death Dolls and the Coven, the current Impact Knockouts champion. They've got it all right there. Now, do you like more of the comedic side to wrestling, the funnier kind of things, the things that maybe aren't taken so seriously? You've got the guys like Dirty Dango, Santino Marella, Johnny Swinger, okay? I'm not a huge fan of Johnny Swinger, but Zicky Dice, Joe Hendry. I mean, Joe Hendry, you can't even really put him in that comedic category, but he really kind of is. He brings kind of almost like a early 2000s Chris Jericho kind of vibe to him, but he's still a really solid talent. Then you look at the tag team division. In tag teams, that's always something that staunch wrestling fans are always debating over. Well, you have to look at what they have. The current tag team champions, Chris Bay, Ace Austin, ABC of the Bullet Club. The Motor City Machine Guns, who now, ironically, I have them on that list, but now they're singles champions. Decay, Heath and Rhino. They've had other teams go through there. Speaking of teams, factions. Impact has had them. They had groups up until recently, Honor No More, led by Eddie Edwards. And currently, The Design, a group that they have really come into their own over the last year, have done amazing things. And speaking of, coming into their own, having storylines, man, Impact Wrestling, they've got the storylines. And I just mentioned The Design with Diener and Alan Angels and Khan and the feud going on with Sami Callihan and now the return of OVE. This is something that has had many different stages and continues to go on. The return of Nick Aldis to Impact Wrestling, the former champion, the longtime running NWA World Heavyweight Champion, is back in the company. And his battle, his vision to regain that Impact World Championship. One thing that has really been overlooked, unless you've been watching Impact Wrestling for the better part of 9 to 12 months, Steve Macklin, who shockingly just lost the championship to Alex Shelley this past weekend. He had an almost 2-year journey, which they told the story leading up to the Impact World Championship. And I think had it not been for the for the terrible injury to Josh Alexander, I think we would have seen that story come to culmination with Steve Maclin actually beating Josh Alexander, as opposed to Maclin defeating Kushida for the vacant championship. There literally is something for everybody. No matter the style of wrestling fan you are, there is something literally for everybody in Impact Wrestling. Every single week, they have a 2-hour broadcast. It is filled with great in-ring action, storyline development, surprises, so much more. They always put on just an amazing showcase. And there's very little downtime or filler moments in these shows. Whereas you have, one of my biggest complaints about WWE has been with, not including NXT, but with 5 hours of weekly programming, 3 on Monday nights, 2 on Friday nights. They tend to have a lot of filler elements in the program that just, you sit there and you look at it and you wonder why it's there. Did that really need to be there? Or they're focusing just way too much on one thing. Doesn't happen all the time. Impact Wrestling is much more concise. They're really good when it comes to reminding people of things that happen, but also talking about things that are currently happening and going to happen. There will be weeks, and I've noticed this a lot, that they're going to put a heavy focus on their women's division. And there's been a number of times over the last year where a women's division match has headlined, has main evented Impact Wrestling, and has been a great match. I gave you that list of just some of the talent in that women's division that have put on phenomenal matches and have had great storylines. Multiple storylines, varied levels of focus every single week. There's always something new and interesting going on. And let's talk about the backbone of what is really good in a lot of wrestling organizations and can be really bad in other ones, and that's the announcing team. And Impact Wrestling has one of the best tandems of on-air talent in Tom Hannafin and Matt Raywald. I would put them up, and argue with me in the comments on this one. I would put them in with the likes of JR and Jerry the King Lawler in their heyday, the likes of a Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan in their heyday. They're just that good. Tom Hannafin, great at the play-by-play, but also getting emotional when certain things happen. We saw it a lot just in the last 4 to 6 weeks with Steve Maclin and the return of Bully Ray. Matt Raywald does a great job of straddling that line between kind of babyface commentator, switching over to heel commentator, and going back and forth. But they are an absolutely fantastic tandem together. I love listening to these two guys telling the stories and watching them on the show. And Scott D'Amore, have to talk about Scott D'Amore. He is the president of Impact Wrestling. He is an on-air authority figure. They technically have 2 on-air authority figures. They have, the comedic director of authority, Santino Marella, but then they also have the serious, the man with the headset, the guy that is in charge, Scott D'Amore. He only appears on screen when he absolutely needs to. And it's always to add something into a storyline or advance a storyline. He doesn't overstay his welcome. He gets those great moments. And a lot of times they do a lot of they've recently done a lot of their tapings in Canada, and he is from Canada, so it makes sense. Okay. Those are the positives. Now, I do have to talk about, I do have to take a couple of knocks on them. Okay. And the biggest one would happen to be its lack of a major TV outlet here in the United States. They are available on Access TV, which I don't know what cable providers actually have Access TV. They are on Fight TV and they are on their YouTube channel. I can tell you right now, and this is coming from my opinion. This is not a sponsored thing by Impact Wrestling or anything, but the 99 cents a month I pay to be able to watch Impact Wrestling live is such a good deal. It is so worth it. I can watch it live on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time if I want. Typically, I watch it on Friday in full at work. I'm able to do that, and it's great to be able to watch it, to be able to watch old shows and so many other things. They do a masterful job, though, of juggling multi-main storylines at once. But again, okay, here's going to be another knock on them. If you've been watching it all and you know this whole Johnny Swinger storyline of, he's going to get 50 wins so he can get a world title shot. Well, he hasn't even gotten one yet. And he's got Ziggy Dice with him, who was a really good talent in NWA. And he came over to Impact Wrestling, and I don't know if he's dealing with an injury or what's going on. He's just been this goofy sidekick to Johnny Swinger. I'm not a real huge fan of it. I'm not. I could do away with it because I'm too old for that kind of stuff now. Okay. Now, the big question, can they compete with the big two? Can they compete with WWE and AEW? In the grand scheme of things, in today's wrestling landscape, it's a no. It really is a no, because you've got WWE all the way up here. You've got AEW just below them. And it's just because of, well, two things. One, longevity. WWE has been doing this for over 40 years in the iteration that it's in, the Vince McMahon Jr., the Vincent Kennedy McMahon version of WWE, versus a little over 4 years now for AEW. But they're hands down, 1 and 2 up here. I would put Impact Wrestling here in the middle at a 3. Okay. And then everybody else is below them, honestly. NWA, Ring of Honor, GCW, anybody else here in the United States, whoever you want to throw out there. Impact Wrestling, in my opinion, is in a level by itself right now. Okay. Their closest competition, quite honestly, would be NWA and or Ring of Honor. If Ring of Honor actually would get its own television deal, which may be coming in the next year or so, who knows, that could change things. Okay. But as of right now, Impact Wrestling is outside of that tier from AEW, WWE. Too much money. You've got, the battle of the billionaires again, Vince McMahon, and now, with their new merger with UFC, and then Tony Khan and his family money. And there's just way too much power there between the money and just the broad base, not just here in the United States, but worldwide for both organizations. But quite honestly, you could tell they're not trying to compete head to head. Scott D'Amore is not out there trying to compete head to head with Triple H and Tony Khan. They're just not. They're doing their thing. And that's the way it should be. Their wrestlers will reference other organizations. No problem. They don't have a problem talking about anybody else. But it is usually about, this guy was a champion here. This guy, they don't take shots at the other organizations. Okay. I like to compare them to ECW of the 1990s, the Paul Heyman run ECW of the 1990s, because Impact Wrestling, they're forging their own path. They're staying in their own lane. They're doing their thing. Now, they do continue to have a good relationship with New Japan Wrestling, and they're also keeping the door open with AEW. I think there hasn't been the flow back and forth as there was, during the pandemic, especially in 2021, 2022, there was more. But we did see a lot of that when Kenny Omega had his run as AEW and Impact World Champion. We saw that happen. So just to kind of wrap this up, if you're looking for something a little bit different than what WWE and AEW is offering, or are looking to expand your wrestling viewing, if you're one of those people that, okay, between 5 hours of WWE, 2 hours of NXT, 2, 3, soon to be 5 hours of AEW, if you're looking for one other thing, maybe on a Thursday night when there's nothing else, Impact Wrestling is a great third option for you. That is not going anywhere. That's the thing. They have survived. They survived the early days of the NWA Total Nonstop Action era. They survived the Jeff Jarrett run. Well, those were those days, the TNA days. Their runs with Dixie Carter, Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff at the top. Now they've solidified themselves as their own identity, with their own identity, which is a fantastic thing, and I love that. Now, Impact Wrestling does have its flaws, as I mentioned, but as a full package, as a wrestling show and an organization, the goods definitely outweigh the bads. And I could speak firsthand, too. Within the last calendar year, I have attended live events for WWE, a house show for WWE, Dynamite for AEW, and TV tapings in Chicago for Impact Wrestling. Now, Impact was in a much smaller venue, which is what they typically do. They go to much smaller venues because they want to have that smaller, closer feeling for the fans. And they're able to keep the ticket prices down. Okay. But as far as the in-ring action and the feel and the atmosphere of the show, quite honestly, I'd put Impact Wrestling right there. That actually, the Impact shows that my son and I, that Positive One, went to with me in Chicago, his second live events, AEW Dynamite in here in Milwaukee was his first, but then going to that and then doing the WWE house show after that, I think Impact Wrestling meant more to him. I think he enjoyed it so much more because it was a closer feel, and these were diehard fans. These are diehard fans that are there, and I'm sad that I missed the Chicago shows a couple of months ago. I'm hoping to get to Chicago in July and definitely back to Chicago again for Bound for Glory in October. I'm hoping to be able to get to those shows again because we had so much fun with them. But again, if you're looking for another wrestling option, and I'm not saying to replace WWE or AEW, continue to watch those. I know I do. But if you're looking for more and something a little bit different and some other talents, I mean, there are former AEW and former WWE and other organization talents that are in Impact Wrestling. That's what's great, though, is these talents have an option to go somewhere else other than the big two. And as fans, we have that option as well. So again, this is not endorsed, sponsored, paid for, or anything by Impact Wrestling or any of its talents. These are my personal opinions as a wrestling fan and somebody that does this stuff on social media. And I enjoy it, and I would love to see Impact Wrestling get more coverage. Maybe take away a small percentage of what people are talking about with WWE and AEW and let Impact Wrestling get in some of those conversations and let people talk about it. Unfortunately, I think it's going to have to wait until they get a good TV deal because Access TV just, like I said, I don't know what cable providers, what satellite providers have Access TV. I cut the cord a long time ago, and I can't get it anywhere. What we utilize can't get, but thankfully they have things set up on YouTube where you can watch it, or you can watch it on Fight TV as well. You can do those things. But if you haven't had a chance, or if you're somebody that watched TNA back in the day and just kind of fell away from it, you know, because of everything with Dixie Carter and Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff and all that stuff. I can tell you it's run a lot differently now. It is a much better product now than it was back then. It truly is. And I think everybody should give it a shot. If you're able to, for 1 month, spend that 99 cents on YouTube and give Impact Wrestling a chance for 1 month. Okay. And if I'm wrong, come back to me in the comments about this. If I'm wrong about it, come back to me. I want to have the conversation here to talk about this. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Thank you for letting me have my opinions here. I want to do more of these types of things where we're talking about more specific things where it's not predictions, it's not recaps of shows, it's not the breaking news, but it's more kind of opinion-based pieces. Being able to do this kind of stuff. I really enjoy doing this. I want to be able to talk more to you folks about this kind of stuff. But I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in. The other thing I want to remind everybody is if you go into my bio here on YouTube, I do have a link tree. I have to update a few things in there, which I have not had a chance to do, but all the social medias are in there. Please check it out. I greatly appreciate it. I am hoping that this is going to be the first in a number of new posts that I'm going to be putting up on this channel here very soon. So we'll see how this one does, and we'll see where it goes. Thank you very much for tuning in. Greatly appreciate it. Over the course of the next few days, I will be answering all of your comments, whatever pops in. So thank you very much for tuning in. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you. Go out, enjoy some great wrestling, but definitely check out Impact Wrestling. You need to tune in. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel.